Okay, let's go ahead and graph the following function. We have f of x, which is equal to negative 1 over 11 x squared. So let's go ahead and graph this first by making a table. So by doing that, we're going to pick values for x, and then we're going to determine what f of x is, because that is equal to negative 1 over 11 x squared. And then we're going to determine what that ordered pair is, which is x f of x. Remember that f of x is the same thing as that y coordinate. So now let's pick some values that are going to make this a little bit easier for us to be able to plug in on the graph. So what I mean by that is let's pick numbers that can be divisible by 11, right? So in this case here we have negative 111 over 11, which is the factor. This is what you're multiplying to get times x squared. So maybe we can choose a negative 11, which is the same thing as negative 11 over 1. So that means if we take negative 1 over 11, and then we're going to multiply it by negative 11 over 1 squared, well, that's going to give us negative 1 over, so negative 11 squared is negative 11 times negative 11, which is positive 121. When we multiply it by negative 1 over 11, then we get negative 121 over 11, which is equal to negative 11. So therefore that ordered pair is going to be negative 11, comma negative 11. Okay, now let's pick 0. So if we take negative 1 over 11 and then multiply it by 0 squared, we know 0 times anything is going to give us 0. So we have 0 and then 0. Next, let's choose positive 11. So we have negative 1 over 11 times positive 11 over 1 squared. Well, positive 11 times 11 is 121. And again, we're multiplying it by negative 1 over 11. So this is going to be negative 121 over 11, which is negative 11. So therefore we have negative 11, comma, positive 11. Okay. So, I'm sorry, let's repeat that here. This is positive 11, comma, negative 11. All right. So now let's go ahead and then graph this. Okay, so we're going to graph our points. Okay, so what's happening here is the following. All right, so we have our 0, 0. Okay, so we know we have 0, 0. And then we have negative 11 and then negative 11. So we're going to go over negative 11 units and then come down negative 11. So therefore here is negative 11, comma, negative 11. And the other order pair is positive 11 and then negative 11. So therefore there is positive 11 to the right and then negative 11. And we know that this is 0, comma, 0. So if we wanted to graph this, that means that we're going to end up with a parabola that looks like the following. Okay, so actually it should be a little bit better than that. Let me go ahead and graph that a little bit better. So here we can see that we have our parabola on the left, and there is half of the parabola on the right. So that means that we have f of x, which is going to equal negative 1 over 11 times x squared. So let's take a look at this here. We have negative 1 over 11 x squared. So what that means is we have a vertical shrink factor of 1 over 11 because you're multiplying it by a fraction. So you can see here. Now, what's happening here is you can see how it's shrinking as far as the stretch is concerned. So that means that it's getting wider and slower as it goes, right? So therefore, it's a vertical shrink factor of 1 over 11. And then if you notice, you see the x-axis, and I'm going to go ahead and take a look at Desmos here, all right? So if we had Desmos, right, and we put in, let's say, the x squared, right? Okay, so there is our factor, okay? Now, if we take 1 and then divide that by 11, right? Okay, and then we're going to say, okay, this is going to be x squared. Now you can see here that it's vertically shrinking, okay? But now, we now need to multiply this thing by negative. So now this is going to become negative 1 over 11x squared. So what it does is it's reflecting about the x-axis. So that means if you're reflecting it according to the x-axis. So if you draw a line over here, right, and fold this page, that means these two parabolas here should be on top of each other. So because of that negative in front of that function, which is x, that tells us, okay, this tells us that we're reflecting about the x-axis. So let's use this information to then graph this, okay, here. So we're going to click to enlarge to graph. We're first going to select a ordered pair, which is the 0, 0, because we know it's at the origin. Okay, now we know it's a vertical shrink, okay? So it's a vertical shrink at the fraction 1 divided by 11. Okay, so you can see here, now it's looking like that first part, and then it's reflecting, so it's the x reflection. So that means when you check that, now it's reflecting about the x-axis. So let's select save. This looks exactly like the graph that we graphed. And then let's check our answer, and there's our result.